into the midnight sun. Wheels go round and round. You're on.
The unexpected journey of Richard Goodall begins. The night sky over Indiana glittered with a quiet energy as Richard Goodall returned home, no longer just a local school janitor, but now a national sensation. From the moment he stepped off that plane, it was clear this was not just a homecoming. It was a moment of transformation. The man who had once swept hallways in relative obscurity was now greeted with cheers, camera flashes, and the warm embrace of a community that had watched his rise with awe. But the true story of Richard Goodall didn't begin or end with confetti or standing ovations. In fact, what happened after the curtains closed and the stage lights dimmed was more gripping than anyone could have imagined. As a janitor at West Vigo Middle School in Terre Haute, Indiana, Richard was known for his kindness and occasional hallway serenades, but few could have guessed that his voice would one day captivate millions. His viral performance on America's Got Talent catapulted him from anonymity to overnight fame. And yet, as his plane touched down on Indiana soil, one question lingered in the air. What comes next for a man whose story already feels like a movie? The answer, it seems, is far more surprising than any scripted finale. Because Richard isn't following the typical path of fame. He's rewriting the rules, and what he's planning to do next, after everything, might be the boldest chapter of all. The humble beginnings of a hidden star. Before the world discovered his voice, Richard Goodall was simply known as Mr. Goodall, the friendly janitor who swept the halls of West Vigo Middle School in Terre Haute, Indiana. Born in Indianapolis, Richard's life had long been grounded in routine, modesty, and service to others. For over 2 decades, he was the quiet heartbeat of the school, greeting students, mopping up spills, and offering gentle words of encouragement. But beneath that humble role was a voice so soulful, so unexpectedly powerful, it often stopped students and teachers mid-stride. Richard never trained professionally. He didn't seek the spotlight. Yet his impromptu hallway serenades became local legend, echoing off the lockers and into the hearts of anyone within earshot. Singing wasn't a performance, it was a release, a daily moment of joy in an otherwise physically demanding job. The students, he wasn't just a janitor. He was the singing custodian who turned a dull Tuesday morning into a moment of magic. Still, outside those school walls, no one knew his name. And Richard, by all accounts, seemed content with that. He wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing harmony, both musical and emotional. But in a twist of fate that would soon reshape his world, one casual hallway performance was about to find its way onto the internet and straight into the hands of national producers. Little did Richard know, the world beyond Indiana was about to hear his voice, and nothing would ever be the same again. One viral video that changed everything. In the digital age, it takes just one moment to go from invisible to unforgettable, and for Richard Goodall, that moment came in 2022. Someone had recorded him casually singing Journey, "Don't Stop Believin'," during a normal day at school. No stage, no microphone, just a mop bucket and raw talent. The clip made its way onto TikTok, and almost overnight, the so-called singing janitor was captivating millions. The video struck a chord with viewers who saw not just talent, but authenticity, the kind that can't be manufactured in a studio. As the views racked up, producers from America's Got Talent took notice. Within weeks, Richard received the unexpected call that would pull him from janitorial work and place him on one of the biggest stages in the world. But the transition wasn't simple. He had never flown in an airplane, let alone been to Los Angeles. That first flight beyond Missouri was as emotional as it was nerve-wracking, marking the beginning of a chapter he never thought he'd write. With suitcase in hand and a heart full of uncertainty, Richard boarded that flight not as a performer, but as a man who believed it was finally time to share his voice beyond the walls of his school. And as fate would have it, the voice that had echoed through middle school halls was about to echo across an entire nation. From AGT audition to America's heartbeat. When Richard Goodall stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2024, he didn't look like your typical performer. There were no backup dancers, no dramatic poses, just a middle-aged janitor in simple clothes standing nervously under the glare of the spotlight. But the moment he began to sing Journey, Don't Stop Believin', the entire theater was transformed. His voice, rich with emotion and untouched by industry polish, broke through the noise and reached something deeper in the crowd. The judges, stunned, responded with the golden buzzer. That moment launched Richard from viral curiosity to full-blown phenomenon. But he didn't stop there. Each round of the competition brought not just new songs, but deeply personal choices. In the quarterfinals, his rendition of Michael Bolton's How Am I Supposed to Live Without You was a love letter to his fiancée, Angie Vanoven, a woman who had become his rock. For the semifinals, he boldly tackled Eye of the Tiger, proving that grit and soul could coexist in one voice. And for the grand finale, Richard returned to his roots, performing faithfully and then once again, Don't Stop Believin'. Only this time, he was joined by Journey themselves, turning a school custodian into a dream collaborator. And as the confetti rained down, the world wasn't just watching a winner, they were witnessing the rise of a legend. Love, loss, and the voice that carried it all. Richard Goodall's performances were more than just technically sound, they were emotionally seismic. Each note carried the weight of personal history, particularly one chapter he rarely spoke about publicly: the loss of his first wife, Patricia Sue Goodall. In 2021, after a painful battle with kidney cancer, Patricia passed away, leaving behind years of memories and a void that nearly silenced Richard's music forever. But rather than retreat, he let the grief fuel his artistry. Songs about love, loss, and resilience took on new meaning. Every time Richard stepped on stage and sang about holding on, he wasn't acting, he was living. Behind the viral sensation was a man who had known heartbreak in its rawest form. After his AGT win, the whirlwind didn't stop. Just a month after his victory, he underwent hernia surgery, a physical reminder that even success can be interrupted by life's unpredictability. These battles, both seen and unseen, added texture to his voice that couldn't be taught or faked. When Richard sang, he wasn't performing. He was remembering. And it's that authenticity, the ache behind the applause, that made audiences not just cheer for him, but feel every word he sang. The pain behind the persistence. Long before the world knew his name, Richard Goodall had already endured a lifetime of challenges. Raised in modest circumstances in Indiana, he grew up with financial limitations but a boundless love for music. Singing wasn't just a hobby, it was an escape, a way to rise above everyday struggles. But the road to recognition wasn't smooth. Long before his AGT breakout, Richard auditioned for The Voice and was rejected. For many, that would have been the end. But Richard didn't stop. He kept singing in churches, school halls, and small local venues. During the pandemic, another blow came. The gospel group he performed with disbanded due to lockdowns, stripping away a key part of his musical community. Yet again, instead of giving up, he adapted, honing his craft as a solo act, slowly finding his unique voice. These setbacks didn't deter him, they sharpened him. Because every time a door closed, Richard sang louder. And as life continued to test him, his music only grew more honest, more powerful, and impossible to ignore. Angie, family, and a life rewritten. Richard Goodall's AGT journey wasn't just about fame. It was about healing old wounds and discovering new beginnings. In 2022, he met Angie Vanoven, the woman who would not only become his wife, but also his emotional compass. Angie believed in him when others overlooked him, and her encouragement became a lifeline during moments of doubt. But her impact didn't stop there. With her help and a little assistance from a popular ancestry service, Richard tracked down his biological father for the first time in his life. That discovery in 2025 revealed not only his dad, a retired K-9 officer and military veteran, but also 3 siblings he never knew existed. The reunion was emotional and life-changing. His father, unaware Richard even existed, was stunned and thrilled to meet his son. The moment filled a gap Richard had carried quietly for decades. As he shared the news on social media, fans poured in with support, making the connection feel not just personal but communal. In finding his voice, Richard also found the missing pieces of his past and the family he never thought he'd meet. Still a janitor, still a star. After winning America's Got Talent, Richard Goodall could have disappeared into the celebrity machine, chasing endorsements, agents, and new addresses. But instead, he returned to the same school halls where his journey began. At West Vigo Middle School, Richard picked up the mop once again, proving that success didn't have to erase humility. Yet behind the scenes, new doors were swinging wide open. He performed at an Indiana Pacers game, sang at the Circle of Lights in Indianapolis, and opened for Howie Mandel in California. Locally, he was honored with a symbolic key to the city, and his school held a pep rally just to celebrate him. On social media, he continued to share snapshots of his life, cleaning cafeterias by day, performing for thousands by night. He wasn't pretending to be someone new. He was still Richard, just with a mic now. And in a world obsessed with reinvention, Richard's refusal to change made him even more unforgettable. A single called "Long Time Coming," and it was. After months of performing and planning, Richard Goodall finally took a leap into the professional music industry with his debut single, "Long Time Coming," released in August 2025. The title said it all, decades of quiet preparation now condensed into one track meant to capture everything his voice had endured. Leading up to the release, Richard shared behind-the-scenes footage from recording sessions in Nashville, offering fans a peek into the studio process. He also joined a local band, Sugar Street, continuing to perform live while balancing national attention. But music wasn't the only opportunity knocking. Book publishers approached him for a memoir, while Angie sparked rumors about a potential biopic. Richard, ever the jokester, suggested Zac Efron should play him. The spotlight hadn't dimmed, it had expanded. And when he returned for the AGT 20th anniversary special, sharing the stage with other top alumni, it was a full-circle moment that confirmed what his fans had known all along. This janitor-turned-phenomenon wasn't a one-hit wonder. He was just getting started. The next chapter, music, Florida, and a life redefined. With fame in full bloom, Richard Goodall stands at a crossroads, but it's a joyful one. He and Angie have begun planning for retirement, and word has it they're eyeing Florida as their next home. Warmer weather, sandy beaches, and a slower pace of life all offer the kind of peace they've earned. But Richard isn't done dreaming. He's considering a full-length album, more live shows, and even a collaboration with Simon Cowell. At the same time, he remains deeply connected to the fans who lifted him up. He continues engaging online, showing up at local events, and using his voice to inspire others who feel invisible or unheard. A year ago, Richard was mopping floors and singing to lockers. Now he's preparing for a life filled with music, travel, and second chances. He knows where he came from, and more importantly, he knows where he's going. Because as Richard himself says, the sky's the limit and the future, it's